Well, my next question is, okay, so it seems to be this mental internet, this non-local consciousness is a
Yes.
democracy in terms of anyone can access it.
Yes.
Would governments around the world try to control it somehow? Is that possible?
I don't think it's possible. Luckily, it's not possible to control, I think. But of course, you could imagine that they hired 200 black magicians sitting there and meditating evil thoughts about the neighboring state or like that. I write in my book I have one chapter about the military use of those abilities, and in what they called this East-West conflict mostly between the USA and Soviet Union, they were quite interested in using these for spy purposes, espionage, and they have some kind of great success with it also, at least in singular cases. What made the government, at least in USA, somehow put these projects on the shelf was that it was somehow difficult to make the predictions and the visions, the clairvoyance, reliable enough to base military operations. Because if you have lots of forces, you have 100,000 troops, you have equipment, you have lots of civilians, to make all this depend on the sometimes precise, sometimes flimsy visions of a clairvoyant, it's too risky in a way. So, but all the researchers involved in this project in US, it's called Project Stargate as an umbrella term. They were totally convinced about the reality of the phenomenon. So the problem was not that do these things exist or not, but rather, are they reliable enough to be used in normal military activity? And the answer to the first question, do these things exist, was a clear yes. And the answer to the other question was no. Because it was not researchers' task to decide the future of these projects. It was a kind of governmental body that was somehow evaluating, and they found that okay, interesting, but we cannot base our military operations on this stuff. So might be interesting, but for the time being, let's close it down. And that happened in 1995, and then the program had been running for about 20 years.
Sure. Okay, thanks for that. The other question I've got, which is a bit out there, is that, okay, this mental internet, this non-local consciousness exists. Would we be sharing that with possibly alien entities?
Yes, I think so, because at least at my perception, this is kind of the basic stuff of the universe, this consciousness, and that is in somehow in step with this old Indian Vedanta philosophy, that somehow consciousness is on a higher level than matter. In our normal, Enlightenment philosophy after René Descartes and that kind of branch of philosophy, we tend to regard matter as, the primary principle. But as I say, the old Indian and also the old Buddhist tradition tend to have the opposite hierarchy. So there you can somehow regard consciousness is the basic stuff of the universe, and then somehow, just like ice is frozen water on a lower energetic level, so you can also regard from that perspective matter as a somehow frozen consciousness, processness that has taken somehow concrete shape and is on, energetically speaking, a lower level. And there are some quantum physicists somehow that shares that kind of philosophy about the universe. Very famous Hungarian-American Evgen Wigner. He is excellent, and he more and more, as older he became more and more convinced about that. And also you have in England, in Cambridge, Professor Brian Josephson, who won the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1973. He is convinced about some kind of consciousness collective, ever present. And why should the aliens be somehow? It's part of the cosmos.
Absolutely, yeah, I quite agree. So I guess the big question is, what happens to our consciousness when we die? Is it just because it's not in us, it's already out there?
Yeah.
Does that carry on after our death?
As they say in this old Hermetic saying, it cannot die because it has never been born.
That's a great answer.